Hello, Cal Poly. I'm back. It's Anthony. This is my iced coffee. And now it's time for a little Q&A. So I had some questions sent on the topic of mental health. And yeah, we're gonna have a little fireside. It actually is a fireside chat because I have a little candle burning. Okay, I thought it was cute. Okay, so I'm going to answer your questions. So, what was your own personal mental health journey? I think because I can't help myself, I need to restructure the question. It's more for me, I think mental health isn't necessarily something that I've ever, not to insinuate that that's what the question was referring to, but it's not something that I really accomplished, that I've conquered and that's done and that, I have my shit figured out. I think it's definitely an ongoing thing, but there are definitely some things that I've learned along the way, some like tools and things that kind of like help me on that path. I think I really, when I was younger, I do have schizophrenia and personality disorders do run in my family. It's a very real thing. I've seen how it affects not only the people who have the illness, but also their kids, loved ones, family members. And it's something that I've kind of been primed to be sensitive to, I think, since a young age. Also, I have a lot of physicians in my family as well, so it's sort of something. It's interesting because my father comes from a conservative Catholic family, and in my family it wasn't really like speaking about mental health. There was a lot of stigma there and a lot of fear, and I think a lot of shame in terms of being embarrassed to talk about it. But because my father's a physician, my mother studied medicine. Don't mind me, just something falling on the counter. Oh, it was a phone that slipped off. Anyway, it was something that we kind of talked about when we were young, and my parents were comfortable talking to us about it. So I think that I've changed my career path many times. So if you're struggling, I feel you. My first thing that I wanted to study when I went when I was in university was psychology. I was really kind of fascinated by a humanistic approach. I very early on started reading the work of Viktor Frankl, who's a big humanist. If you have time, well, we all have extra time, or some of us don't because some of you are students and you have, things that you're still working on. But I highly recommend reading Viktor with a K, Frankl, Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, or on logotherapy. He basically, I'm gonna butcher it here, but just in a nutshell, what he stood for was basically he took Freud's theory of we have all these psychosexual urges when we're super young and we're infants. He basically said yes, we do have those urges, but we're a lot more complex than that. Our urges and our needs are actually to find a sense of meaning in life. And he wrote this whole book of theories that was then taken away from him, a whole manuscript, when he was put into a concentration camp. And then he was forced to sort of rewrite it. And he wrote about case studies about how some people in concentration camps chose to keep on living for their families, and others had lost a will to live. They didn't have a will to meaning. They didn't have that sense of meaning, that reason to continue living, and why they just gave up. And what makes the difference between those two people who were in the same very traumatic circumstance, but what makes one persevere and really do their best to get through it? And why does the other person give up? So I was really fascinated by that because even though I was raised in a very Catholic household, I never really identified very much as religious. So that's something that kind of really stuck to me early on. And I was just fascinated by psychology for narcissistic reasons in my youth because I wanted to figure myself out because I had a lot of trouble figuring out who the hell I was, what I wanted to do, what I was supposed to do in this world, how I was supposed to contribute. Just worried about all the little things and all the big things at the same time. And I was just very anxiety ridden as a youth. Psychology was sort of like that gateway for me, and that kind of normalized seeking out mental health. So I actually started seeing a therapist on and off, and I have been it's a thing that I suggest it to literally everybody, especially my family members and my friends. For anybody who's in a position where they can pursue mental health, whether it's a social worker, a therapist, a psychologist, a psychiatrist in some instances. And if you don't have access to any of those, then maybe just an empathetic ear and just have somebody who you can speak to about your problems. Because I get in trouble when all my stuff stays in here and when I have the same conversation and that little inner monologue, but when I share it with somebody else, whether it's a secret or like something painful or something that I'm just like trying to work through, whatever the issue is, whether it's personal or professional or, you know, somewhere in between, it's always so helpful to talk about it. And so yeah, so I've been seeing, you know, shrinks on and off since I was really young, and I really don't know how I would have been able to be where I am now without that. So I highly recommend it to anybody. Did I even answer the question? I get so distracted. I legit have like pretty severe ADD, so I apologize for that in advance. What was your own personal mental health journey? I guess, yeah, that's it. So I still go to a therapist. I see her once a week on Zoom, because these are the times that we live in right now. And what else? I started meditating several months ago, and that's been a really big game changer. Not an endorsement, but I love Headspace. It's very calming, but there are also YouTube videos that are available that are really good as well. And it just helps me keep centered, and then I just kind of don't get as affected by things as the day sort of goes by. How's your mental health journey changed during the COVID-19 quarantine? I tend to be a planner. I like to decide. I'm also a workaholic, not in the right sense of the word. I used to brag about that, but I realize that it's not necessarily something to be proud of, because I tend to overwork myself and run myself to the ground. And I love planning, especially with the career that I have now. There's so much going on, and I'm flying to all these different places, or was flying to all these different places, that I loved having the next several weeks kind of planned out to know that I was going to be very busy. That's not a reality right now. So I've sort of been forced to, instead of look at everything in terms of the month, I take everything day by day, because I have days when I wake up and look, I'm extremely privileged. Can I speak? I'm extremely privileged. I'm super lucky to be in the situation that I am, where I have food on the table. A lot of people don't. I still get to be working a little bit. A lot of people have lost their jobs, literally millions of Americans and people abroad. So I am really lucky, but I still wake up sometimes and I'm in a really shitty mood and I feel sorry for myself. And everything just kind of feels pointless and I don't really know what to do. So I've been learning to take everything in the day, and I take everything a day at a time. And in the morning, if I'm feeling 60%, then I'm going to be 100% of 60%, and that's the best that I could do. Yeah. Do you have any tips for getting out of mental slumps? Oh, I was about to answer that without even looking at the question. The biggest thing for me is really, I know everybody always talks about self-care as taking care of yourself. While I believe that, and I know we talk about that a lot on Queer Eye, and that's a big part of our culture right now, I really hope that people don't mistake that with self-care. Can also be taking care of somebody else and being of service. It's my love language. I love taking care of people. I love cooking for people. To get out of my own head and to speak to somebody about how their day is going, whether they're doing worse or better off or somewhere in between. I think we're all meant to be on this planet to kind of connect with other people. And we can't do it IRL in real life, so we can do it virtually as well. There's always a parent or a loved one or somebody who you can reach out to, somebody who's quarantining alone, for example. There's always something, so connecting to other people is my answer. For you, was cooking a way to channel your energy and focus on mental health? Is there anything else you do? Cooking was never a conscientious choice, but it was something that that just kind of happened, and I found the meditative nature of like cutting things and preparing a meal, and that's something that's kind of, it's something that I've kind of learned that helped me after the fact, if that makes sense. So cooking definitely has been helpful, but it wasn't conscientious. Is there anything else you do? I meditate. I love to go on a run. Working out really helps as well. And finally, what do you wish you had known in your early 20s? What do I wish I'd known in my early 20s? I was really hard on myself. I felt like I needed to figure out exactly what it was that I wanted to do with my life, and I changed my career path like 4 or 5 times. And I wish I was a little gentler with myself. That's some of the best advice that's been given to me later in life, that I didn't have to have it all figured out. Because everything can change in a moment. Like, I don't know, we live in really uncertain times and we really don't know what the future is going to bring. So I just try to it all really boils down to what meditation is for me, is like staying more in the present. It's good to have life plans, but it's also important to know that those can change, sometimes out of your own control. So yeah, that's kind of it. These are really good questions. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the cooking tutorials. They're decadent recipes, but you gotta feel good during these difficult times. So yeah, take care of each other, be kind to each other, and I hope to meet you guys IRL soon once we're on the other side of this. So take care. Bye.